Welcome to our first video segment, What's Up with the World? I'm Veronica Dristis, and I am the Associate Director of the Global Studies Center. This video segment is a convenient way to stay informed on the timely global events as they happen. This is a collaboration between the Global Studies Center at the University of Pittsburgh and the World Affairs Council. I'd like to introduce my colleague and partner, Emily Markham, Public Program Manager at the World Affairs Council, who will introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Veronica. Today we are joined by Ambassador Dan Simpson. Ambassador Simpson is currently the Associate Editor at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and served in various leadership roles at the Department of State as US Ambassador to Somalia, the Central African Republic, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, among many others. Ambassador Simpson will highlight the decades-long policy of how presidential candidates are briefed on issues of national security. He will then give an example of what this looks like. Thank you for joining.
Traditionally, for very good reasons, the primary reason being that we know that the minute one of these one of the two candidates is elected president, that he or she will be in a situation where they must begin, first of all, to formulate policies toward issues like these 6 wars, and secondly, they will also immediately be in a situation of having to choose the primary implementers of the president's policy on these issues: Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, National Security Advisor, and down the line, you know, the people who will be the staffs that will basically execute the policy that the new president carries out. So it will be necessary for them not to have to start from zero on these things. And so that's why we brief them in advance. Okay, Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Trump, these meetings that you'll have with me regularly will be preparation, in effect, for your conduct of America's foreign affairs relations, whichever one of you is elected president. I chose to start today with the one about America's Middle East wars. There are currently underway about 6 of them in Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Somalia, Yemen, and Libya. On each one, I'll give you some just basic information, and then certainly I'll be prepared to answer any questions, any follow-on questions that you have based on that. Afghanistan, you know, began in 2001 in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, which originated from planning there by Al-Qaeda, hosted by the Taliban in Afghanistan. That war has gone on for 15 years, and the United States still currently has 9,800 troops there, and there are also an additional 26,000 contractors. The basic policy of the United States there has been to support the governments, first of Hamid Karzai and now of Ashraf Ghani, who has been in power since 2014. It is safe to say that we have tried to train Afghan National Army troops to meet the various challenges that the Taliban presents. I would have to characterize the success as moderate to very low. The Ghani government is still quite threatened. Syria is a totally different picture. That started in fact, the war in Syria itself started in 2011 with various rebellious groups fighting against the government of Bashar al-Assad, who has been president of Syria since 2000. We have an estimated 300 troops in Syria, and we try to direct our assistance to the moderate opposition to Bashar al-Assad, because the more extreme and more successful, in fact, opposition to him is backed by Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, particularly the Islamic State. One complicating fact in Syria, and additionally in Iraq, which I'll speak about next, is the role of the Kurds. The Kurds currently control the north of Iraq and a small part of Syria, and they have proved to be effective fighting forces against the Assad government. The problem with them is that the Kurds want their own state, and we have protected them since really our first intervention in Iraq in 1992, and of course the state that the Kurds want would include pieces of Syria, Iraq, Iran, and the biggest problem for us, part of Turkey, and Turkey is our ally. The third war after Afghanistan and Syria is the one in Iraq, which began with the US invasion there in 2003. We retain more than 4,000 troops in Iraq, and we support the government of Hyder al-Abadi, who has been in power since 2014. Again, our strategy has been to train Iraqi forces to face the Islamic Front and other elements that oppose the government of al-Abadi. This too has not gone very well. It's our success in training them, and particularly in producing Iraqi forces that are effective, has been very mixed. And they're currently cranking up to take Mosul, the second largest city in the country, back from the Islamic Front. The date for that keeps getting pushed back, and that's partly because the prospects for Iraqi government forces' success are not as bright as they might be. The fourth war is in Somalia. Our military involvement there began in 1992 after the last successful government of Somalia collapsed in 1991. We have approximately 4,500 troops in Djibouti, which neighbors on Somalia and is the former French Somaliland. The current leader, unelected, of Somalia is Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, whom Mrs. Clinton has met already back in. He's been in power since September 2012, and she did meet with him. The fifth war is Yemen, the civil war there began in 2015. We have hundreds of troops there, but our main function militarily there is to provide support to Saudi Arabian forces who are bombing and fighting against the predominantly Shiite forces backed by Iran. That is a very complicated war. Unfortunately, it's also being conducted in the poorest country in the Middle East, and the casualty level is pretty grim, including bombing of hospitals and such things. The sixth, and I'd like to say final, but I don't really believe that, war is in Libya. That began in 2011 when we participated in the overthrow of the government of Muammar Gaddafi, who had been leader of Libya since 1969. Unfortunately, not very careful thought was given to what would succeed Gaddafi in terms of leadership of Libya. They currently have three governments, one based in Tobruk, another based in Tripoli, and the one that is supported by the rest of the world, the so-called Government of National Accord, headed by Mohammed Magharif, whom Mrs. Clinton has also met, is basically holed up in Tripoli, protected by foreign forces. Altogether, the United States has between 19 and 20,000 troops in the Middle East, and there are 6 wars underway. And in spite of what the priorities of either of the two of you as president may turn out to be once you are in the White House, there's no question but that you will be obliged to pay attention to these 6 wars, if for no other reason than that U.S. forces are engaged in determining the outcome of these wars. I think that'll do for today.